My name's Miranda and welcome to another video. And I'm actually back to making videos again. It took a very long time to recover from finishing my dissertation back in April. It is now June. Also, I went traveling for 2 weeks last month because a friend of mine came to visit me and I played tour guide. And that was a lot of fun. I do have one video from that time. I took her to Pembroke Castle. I've already been there, so I pretty much just had a lot of fun watching her explore the castle. I took a bunch of video there, so hopefully I will be able to get through that and get that edited and up for you because, well, I think it's a lot of fun. I enjoyed our shenanigans. Also, I have edited and ready to post. I just don't have a thumbnail and I've been procrastinating creating one, but I have my vlog from the Magical Readathon back in April. It's going to be up definitely before this, I do know that. Mostly because I am forcing myself to stop procrastinating making that thumbnail because I hate making thumbnails. But that's gonna be done and it's gonna be up, and it just took me forever, which is pretty on brand for me, it seems. Anyway, today's video will be my wrap up for the month of May. So in May I did, of course, participate in the Asianreadathon. I didn't finish many of the books that I said I was going to read. I didn't even reread the mangas I said I was going to reread. I am a bit disappointed in myself. I had planned on reading a lot more than what I just had put down for the readathon. But unfortunately, I am an extreme mood reader and I just went with the flow. And now that I'm free to read as many books for fun as I want, yeah, I'm a little out of control with what it is I want to read. So I managed to read 6 books for the month of May, which I'm a little surprised by because I did travel for 2 weeks. In fact, I finished 3 of those books while traveling. Granted, that was probably because I just read a lot on the trains and buses. I had the 6 hour bus from London back to the town in Wales, and I had to go all the way down to Oxford on my own to meet my friend, so I read quite a bit on those journeys. And then we were also taking the train back and forth, and she's just as much of a bookworm as I am, so we read quite a bit on the trains rather than talking to each other like I guess most people might actually do on a train travel. So yeah, anyway, how about we begin? So the first book I finished was one I had actually started, I think, before the Magical Readathon, and then it didn't really fit with anything in the categories, so I just put it to the side and I finished it in May. And that is the very first book I ever got in a fairy loot box. Yes, it took me this long to read it. My very first box was March of last year. And that was State of Sorrow by Melinda Salisbury. No, I no longer have my copy. I gave it to my friend who visited because I really needed her to read this, so I gifted her my copy because I know I'll never read it again and I wanted her thoughts on it, so I gifted it to her because it was more likely she would read it if she owns it. So State of Sorrow, I gave 3 out of 5 stars, and I have really mixed feelings about this book. I'm still not entirely sure how I feel about it. This was why I gave it to my friend, because I just really needed her thoughts on it. In fact, I will probably force her to record a reaction for me at some point because I just need something. I need someone else to talk to about this. So State of Sorrow follows a young woman by the name of Sorrow, and she lives in a kingdom where her father has essentially made the entirety of it into a monument for his dead son. He is so wrapped up in his own grief that he has just decided that everyone else must mourn with him. And I have to admit, I really liked this concept of a country that was stuck in a forced mourning because of their leader. It was definitely, like, very sad to read, but also very interesting in a sense. The way that the country was portrayed as this very depressing, very sad, very forcefully mournful. No one was allowed to laugh or smile or celebrate. It was everyone had to mourn for this kid that died, mostly because the leader was a bit of an idiot. I'm putting the blame solely on him, like it is his fault. He has no right to force everyone to mourn with him. And then Sorrow, who was born after this event, like a couple days afterwards, she's grown up her entire life in this society. And the way that she views it, I could find myself agreeing with her quite a bit. But at the same time, she was a little annoying of a character. Now and again, you just wanted to scream at her to have some common sense with some of the stuff she decided to do. And you just wanted her to accept the fact that she really needed to take some responsibility now and again. But the thing that really got to me in this book, and this is why I have such mixed feelings, was the twists. Yes, twists. There were multiple. I got to a point where when the next one happened, I went, oh, okay, I guess this is our story? So just before the first twist, I thought the book was going an entirely different direction, and I was definitely here for it. I was ready for this type of story that seemed like it was going. I thought it was going to be really, really interesting. And then the first twist happened, and I'm still very unsure about this twist. I'm not entirely sure if I'm fully on board with it, but I thought, okay, let's see where this goes. So I kept going, and then another twist happened, and then another one, and then another one. You can kind of see where this is going. Eventually, by the end of the book, I had agreed with myself that I couldn't quite give up. So I am planning on reading the sequel, mostly because I'm still so conflicted as to how I feel about everything that happened that I need to read the sequel just to decide whether or not I liked it. So because of that, I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars because I didn't mind it. I enjoyed the concept of the country that was in a forcible state of mourning. I enjoyed what I thought was going to be the storyline, and then the twist made me go, okay, I guess I'll see where this goes. And then there was another twist where I thought, okay, I think I got ya. Also think I wish this hadn't happened, but we'll see how this goes. Although I have read a couple reviews about a romantic relationship in the second book, which, so 3 out of 5 stars, really wasn't that bad. I'm extremely conflicted on this book because of the amount of twists that happen in it, that I still am not entirely sure where I stand on it. So I'm planning on reading the sequel probably before the end of summer, just so I can come to a decision as to how I felt about it. Yes, that is the only reason I'm planning on reading it. I just need to know how I felt about the first book because I need to see where all these twists eventually lead. After that, I will make my decision. The next book I finished, and this was one for Asianreadathon, and that was Not Your Sidekick by C.B. Lee. And I have to say, I really, really enjoyed this book. I had a good feeling when I first read the descriptor for this book. That's why I picked it for the Asianreadathon. And yeah, it was adorable. It was absolutely adorable. It was something that if they ever made it into a movie or an animated series or anything like that, I would probably constantly want to rewatch it because it is so cute. And what happened in it exactly wasn't quite what I expected, but I was pleasantly surprised by the ending. And there's also 2 more books in this series, and I can't wait to read them. I am planning on reading one of them next month. I don't know when exactly I'll read the 3rd one, but I know I want to read the sequel relatively soon because the first one just, it made me happy. So I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars, not entirely a 5 out of 5 because a lot of it was extremely fast-paced, and while I do occasionally enjoy books that are fast-paced, now and again this one was almost too fast-paced for me. And it was definitely, and this is not an insult, it was definitely a rather simple book. So it was a quick and easy read. I had a massive smile on my face almost the entire time. It was cute, adorable, I enjoyed it immensely. And for anyone who's looking for a really cute superhero book, I would highly recommend this. I guess for anyone who hasn't seen my Asianreadathon TBR, I should probably say what the book is about. So Not Your Sidekick follows a young girl by the name of, okay, I've already forgotten. If you think I ever remember everything I read and I just say it off the top of my head, you are very wrong. I am constantly consulting my Goodreads list. Never trust me to remember everything. Jessica, that's her name, Jessica. So Jessica's the daughter of 2 superheroes, but it looks like she might not have any superpowers. So because of this, in order to spruce up her CV to get into post-secondary, she decides to take on an internship, and it happens to be with her town's supervillain. And this is great for her because not only does she get to sort of irk her parents by doing this in secret, she also gets to work closely with her crush. So like I said, super adorable, massive smile on my face. It was very fast-paced and rather simplified in its language, but I enjoyed it so much that I would highly recommend this to anyone who wants to read any kind of superhero book. And I cannot wait to read the other 2 books in this series. All right, let's see what it is I finished next. Oh, right. So the next book I finished, and this is another fairy book. Oh, actually, where is my copy? Haha, found it. Yes, I read Nocturna by Maya Motain. Motain? I really hope I got that right. I apologize if I did not. This book is from the April Fairly box. I read it in May because I'd already picked out my TBR for April because Magical Readathon. And I have to say, I really like this book. I've been pretty 50-50 with Fairy Loot books. Some of them have been fantastic, some of them I've been pretty, okay, they're all right. This one was pretty fantastic. I'm recommending it to a friend of mine who wants something a little bit more fast-paced right now, and this is on our radar. I told her, read it, it's actually pretty fun. For those of you who don't know what Nocturna is about, this book follows two main characters by the name of Finn and Alfie. Finn has the power to shapeshift herself, change her appearance, which is great because she's a thief. Alfie, on the other hand, is the newly crowned prince of his kingdom because his brother, unfortunately, has died. Their paths cross, however, when accidental shenanigans happen, and they end up releasing some rather old, terrible magic that's rather hungry. So they have to work together in order to stop it. So, like I said, I really enjoyed this book. The only complaint I had with it, which is the only reason why I ended up giving this book a 4 out of 5 rather than maybe a 4.5 or a 5 out of 5 stars, was it was extremely fast-paced. No, seriously, this entire book, I think, takes place over the course of 3 days. And I don't mind books that take place over a short time period. One of my favorite series of all time is the Abandoned trilogy by May Cabot, and the first book takes place over just an entire day, with just a ton of flashbacks. So I don't have any problems with really condensed timelines. It's not a big issue, but in this book, it was almost insane that it took place over that short amount of time. I expected it to take place over the course of, I don't know, maybe a week or two. But to be fair, I guess a few other books I've read that I absolutely love have taken place over much shorter periods of time. So it was just something that I remember thinking as I read this is mildly insane how close together all these events are happening. But I guess it makes sense. But one of my favorite things to do while reading this was I ended up playing sort of a game with myself where I started picking out anything in this book that I thought was probably inspired by other works of fiction. Biggest winner was probably how many things in here I felt might have been inspired by a darker shade of magic, because this kind of felt like a darker shade of magic-esque book. And I loved that feeling because I love Darker Shade of Magic. I think it is a fantastic book. So to get a feeling for Darker Shade of Magic from this book, it actually made me enjoy it a little bit more. I also really enjoyed the character of Finn. I felt she was a very strong character. I felt like she could kick butt no matter what, but she was also a very insecure character. And I like the fact that that was part of her character. Like, she's definitely a very strong woman, but she has these insecurities and these fears, and they're very prominent to her characterization. And it's nice to have a character that definitely is trying their best to constantly be strong, but still you can see these fears. I kind of enjoyed Alfie. Now and again, he was a bit annoying, but for the most part, he was pretty okay. But the thing I loved most was the magic in this world. Particularly, I loved Alfie's power. Alfie's power was probably my favorite, and the way that it was used, because that was, like, it was definitely a little bit more complex than, say, Finn's, because hers is mostly just shape-shifting. I won't say what Alfie's power is because, well, you learn about it pretty quick, but I think it's just really enjoyable the way you read about how his power works, so I really don't want to give it away. I like the description of it. So as I said, 4 out of 5 stars, and I would definitely say if you are a fan of Darker Shade of Magic, I think you would really enjoy this book. No, seriously, I got so much Darker Shade of Magic vibes from it that if you are a fan of that series, you will probably get some sort of enjoyment from this book, particularly if you're looking for a YA version of it. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to the sequel. I think it was fantastic, and I'm looking forward to actually rereading it again sometime in the future. Alright, so the next book I finished, and this was the only other book I ended up reading for the Asianreadathon. I'm sorry. I tried, apparently. I'm just not always very good with themed readathons. That was Rich People Problems by Kevin Kwan. So this is the final book of the Crazy Rich Asian trilogy. I am finally done. And the third book was, it's definitely my least favorite. I think I only really gave it a 3 out of 5 stars because I still enjoyed the insanity of a lot of the things that happened. But for the most part, I'd say at about just after the halfway point, I started doing what I call my scan reading, which is where I will just start skipping a lot of the descriptor to get to the conversation because all I care about at this point is the plot. I just want to get through it. So again, like with the other two books, there was definitely a lot of descriptor of opulence and the crazy rich lifestyle that all these characters live, which is fun and all, but for the most part, I wish there'd been a little bit more substance to the story in this one. The first book was a rather classic kind of love story. The second book was pretty fun, learning more about Rachel's family and her heritage and whatnot. The third book was inheritance squabbling, I guess, with a little bit of like a revelation about stuff that happened quite a few years ago, but for the most part, the majority of the story is about what's going to happen to the grandmother's everything because of inheritance stuff, and yeah. Which, quite frankly, I didn't really enjoy that much of a story. The other thing that I really didn't like about this book was a lot of what was going on with Kitty in this book. She redeemed herself in bits and pieces in the second book. At least to me, I enjoyed her a lot in the second book. In fact, her storyline might have been my favorite, besides Astrid, because I just really, really like Astrid. But in the third book, a lot of what I felt was in the second book for her just felt wasted. And I hated that. I really did. Like, I thought in the second book there was a chance of her becoming a much better person, and then in the third book it just felt entirely thrown away and she became really spoiled and bratty and whatnot. I mean, she sort of did something good at the end of the book, but it was mainly for rather bratty reasons, so I was just really disappointed where her character ended up going. I thought there was so much that could be done with her after the second book, and then we got to the third book, and so yeah, it was a bit of a letdown. And then as I said, I just didn't enjoy the story overall. There was a couple things here and there that did, of course, make me laugh, and a couple of things that I thought, oh, that's kind of fun. But for the most part, I just thought it was a really weak ending to a series that, while definitely not my favorite or something that I would constantly recommend, at least I got a decent amount of enjoyment out of. So I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars, mostly because in general, I did enjoy some parts of it, but it was definitely the weakest of the 3 books, and I gotta say, if you never read it, you're not really missing that much. First book is probably still my favorite. Yeah, that's about it. The second last book I ended up reading for the month of May, and this was my favorite book of the month, hands down, and that was Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. Right, so future Miranda here really quick, because I was editing my video and I realized my camera didn't quite actually capture the entirety of my review for Crooked Kingdom. Yeah, so newest bit of information about my camera, it apparently does not record for longer than about 25 minutes. Or half an hour or something like that. So I think I'm gonna have to now keep a timer going so that that doesn't happen. So my review for Crooked Kingdom for this wrap up. Now, I absolutely loved it. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars, hands down, favorite book of the month. And I have to say it was a really good final book for this duology, but still leaves it open for there to be more. Kind of like the end to Lucifer season 4. It could be the end of the series, but there can be more. And I think Leigh Bardugo has mentioned that there's going to be another book set in the Six of Crows universe. And if there is, I am most definitely looking forward to it, and I will probably purchase it the day it comes out. My overall review for this book, it was phenomenal. I still love the characters, I love the plots that were going on, I love that it actually incorporated some characters from the other Grishaverse books, the Shadow and Bone trilogy, and most definitely this duology, in my opinion, was a lot better than the Shadow and Bone trilogy, which I really don't think is an unpopular opinion from what I understand. Most people seem to think the Six of Crows duology is a lot better than the original trilogy, which I can understand. I like the characters in Six of Crows a lot better. And then, as I said, the plot in this book was fantastic. It seems like it's going to be relatively simple how everything's gonna go, but then just everything blows up in their faces a few different times, and I loved how scared I was for some of these characters, like what was going to happen to them, where they were going to end up by the end of this, whether or not they were going to be okay by the end of this. And I really like it when a book keeps me guessing as to what's going to happen to a character. And the ending for this book is one I absolutely loved. It is a little bittersweet, but I like it when a book doesn't always just give you nothing but a happily ever after. And again, as I said, it leaves it open for more possibilities. So yeah, that's my review of Crooked Kingdom, 5 out of 5 stars, absolutely love it. If you like Six of Crows, you're gonna love Crooked Kingdom, and if you like Leigh Bardugo, you are going to love this duology. And if you weren't as big a fan of the Shadow and Bone trilogy, I would still highly recommend Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom because they are a lot better in my opinion. And I think most others as well. All right, and now we're going to get to the very last book I read for the month of May. All right, so I really did not like this book in any way. And that book was Pride by Ibi Zoboi. So this book has been marketed as a Pride and Prejudice remix. So it's Pride and Prejudice, but it takes place in modern day in the Bronx, Brooklyn, somewhere outside of New York City. And the Bennett family is now the, oh gosh, I know I'm gonna be mispronouncing this. They're the Bennetts? Bennettsy? Anyway, and the main character is now Zuri, who is our Elizabeth. And it follows the standard sort of Pride and Prejudice storyline. Okay, before I continue, I want to put it out there that I have no issues whatsoever with Pride and Prejudice retellings, rewrites, versions, whatnot. I have no issue whatsoever. I know I have stated on at least one video, probably multiple others, that Pride and Prejudice is my favorite book of all time. It has been my favorite since I was about 14, 15 when I first read it, and it remains my favorite to this day. It will probably remain my favorite for many, many years to come. That being said, I have no issues reading, watching different versions. I have found many that I absolutely love. Case in point, I absolutely adore the Bollywood version, Pride and Prejudice. I know a lot of people don't like it. I love it. Unironically, I just legitimately love it. I enjoy Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, the movie. Don't like the book. I had serious issues with the book. If you like the movie, fix those issues. And I actually have a lot of other books that are inspired or rewrites, retellings of Pride and Prejudice on my TBR that I am looking forward to reading. I was looking forward to this book. I even purchased it on my e-reader because I thought I'm probably going to enjoy this in some respect, because I usually enjoy most Pride and Prejudice retellings in some way. There was nothing about this book I liked. And I had two very major issues with this book. The biggest, and this is a big thing for me, my favorite scene in the entire book of Pride and Prejudice, the original book, is the first proposal. In my opinion, that is the pivotal moment of the book. That is the big moment. It is the moment when Darcy is forced to realize just how much of a jerk he is, or at least how he's perceived to be. It's also when Elizabeth has to sort of confront, mostly afterwards, just how much prejudice she has and just how much her pride probably has affected her decisions regarding him. So that is a big deal to me, how this scene is handled across any version I read. This version of this, in my opinion, extremely important scene I thought was terrible. In fact, and I was talking about this as I was reading it to my friend in our hostel room, I feel like it was handled so poorly. It was done twice to fix how poorly it was done. No, I am not joking. There was essentially two scenes that was the first proposal in this book's version of it. That does not fly with me. And I told myself I would, at the very least, get to this point, and if it was the worst thing I ever read, I would stop right there. Obviously, it didn't happen. I finished the entire book. I should have stopped. But I kept going because I have problems DNFing books. The other major issue I had with this book was the character of Zuri herself. I did not like Zuri at all. There was nothing about her that made me like her as a character. And I have read characters that are jerks, and I still found something about them that I enjoyed. There was nothing about her I liked. I understand some points about her character. The only thing I think I respected about her character was how much pride she had in her culture and her heritage. That was actually really, really nice. Really, really cool, really, really strong. But otherwise, there was nothing redeemable about her character. I found her to be really mean-spirited. I found, personally, there was no substance behind her hatred of Darius, or this book's Darcy. The way that she decides to start her friendship with Wickham, or what's his name, Warren in this book, is based entirely on the fact that he acts more, as she puts it, hood, So she decides that must make him more trustworthy and much better of a character, which I remember thinking, so this is definitely extreme prejudice. Glad we have that characterization to its extremes. And the fact that she was so against her sister, who is, I forget the name, but that book's version of Jane, against Annesley, who is that book's version of Bingley. She was so against it because she felt her sister was being taken away from her. And I remember that made me angry as I read this book. It made no sense. In the book, she adores Jane. She's so excited. She's happy. And one of the biggest reasons she's so mad at Darcy is Darcy ruins that happiness. But in this book, I feel like she had no reason to be angry at Darcy for doing the exact same thing because she obviously wasn't happy about it either. There was so much in this book that I felt did not make sense, did not work, and like the general narrative of Zuri was just the most mean-spirited thing I read in my life. I had no enjoyment reading this book. It's definitely not the worst variation I've ever read. That honor will forever be held by the book version of Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. But this is definitely my second least favorite that I have ever read. And that includes fan fiction. And I've read some pretty out there ones, many of which are now published. So, in general, I did not like this book. I did not find anything enjoyable from it. I gave it 2 out of 5 stars, which I still think is rather generous. I know I would have a hard time recommending this. I did not like this as a Pride and Prejudice retelling. If they had not marketed it as such, I probably would have liked it a little bit better. There was nothing in it that I felt really connected very well with the original story, so if it had been marketed as something entirely different, I might have seen it in a much better light. But that's just me. I have certain things I do at the very least expect in a retelling of Pride and Prejudice. In this book, I felt just did not do a very good job of it. Majority of the characters I just do not feel fit very well with their original ones. The plot points, while they tried to follow the original story, they just didn't do a very good job in my opinion. And as I said, the first proposal I feel was handled very, very poorly, and I feel that is a very big event in the book. And of course, like, I could not stand the character of Zuri. If you really want to read a Pride and Prejudice remix that is set in modern day, outside of New York neighborhood, give it a shot. There's a chance you will like it a lot more than I did, but I did not like this book. It was not for me. It is not a version that I liked. I still plan on reading many others. I have many on my TBR that I plan on reading in the future, and I just hope I find ones that I feel are a lot better than this one was. So yeah, those were the 6 books that I read in May. So some of them were pretty great. I loved Not Your Sidekick. I loved Crooked Kingdom. Some of them were pretty meh. And then Pride, which I now own a copy on my e-reader, and I just don't think I will ever read it again. That is fine by me. And then Nocturna, which I will most definitely be reading just before the sequel comes out because, like I said, I really, really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more videos by me, both bookish and travel related, including my upcoming travel vlogs to both Hay-on-Wye and Pembroke Castle, please click that subscribe button down below. And I'll see you next time. Bye!